I stared at my mirror in confusion because what was reflected back at me was not my bedroom. It was a room I'd never seen before, with a bed I didn't recognize. I walked forward and touched the glass, but it felt like touching a still image in a magazine. It was cool to the touch, but it wasn't solid. The room behind the mirror appeared to be solid, though, because when I tried to walk through it, I hit a wall. What was going on here? I rubbed my eyes and pinched myself. Then I turned around and ran out of the bedroom, down the hall, and into the kitchen. My husband was sitting at the table drinking his coffee. "What time is it?" I asked. "It's 7 o'clock, he said without looking up from his cup. "Why are you up so early? Didn't have a nightmare again, did you?" "No, it's fine. It's just a strange dream," I lied. I went back to my room and looked in the mirror again. Now it was just my bedroom reflected back at me. I sighed and got out of bed. What kind of dream had I had? As I started to get dressed, I thought about what I'd seen in the mirror. That other room wasn't my bedroom, I was sure of that. So why did I think it was my bedroom in my dream? And why did I feel like I was in my bedroom when I touched the mirror? I couldn't understand it. Then suddenly it hit me. What if that room I saw in the mirror was a room that existed somewhere else in the house? What if it was the room I was in? What if I was already inside the mirror? The thought sent chills down my spine. I shook my head to clear away the crazy idea. There was no way that was true. I must have been dreaming. But then I noticed something very strange. I was wearing my wedding ring, but the reflection in the mirror wasn't. I reached out a hand and touched the glass. The mirror felt cold, like ice. I pushed against it with my fingers. It didn't budge. I pressed harder, but it was no use. This was no ordinary mirror. It was unbreakable. My heart began to race. Why was there a mirror here anyway? We didn't even use this room very often. In fact, we hadn't been inside for months. My husband and I had moved into our new house 2 years ago, and we were finally starting to make progress on fixing it up. It was an old Victorian, and the previous owner had used every room as a storage room. That's how we ended up with a spare bedroom full of boxes. But now, we needed that room for our daughter's nursery. So we were clearing everything out. That's when I found the mirror in the corner covered by a sheet. I took the sheet off and hung it on the back of the door. I stared into the glass, half expecting to see my own reflection. Instead, I saw a woman standing in front of me. She wore a white nightgown, and her hair was pulled back tightly from her face. Her skin was pale, and her eyes were wide and dark. She was beautiful, yet there was something haunting about her. She took a step toward me, and I instinctively took a step back. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out of my mouth. I tried to speak, but my voice was gone. Then she reached out a finger and touched the glass. On the other side, I recoiled as if burned, but my finger remained on the mirror. It was like she was reaching through the glass and pulling me toward her. Suddenly, I woke up. I gasped and sat up in bed. My heart pounded against my ribs. I could feel the sweat on my skin and the sheets tangled around my body. But it was all a dream. My husband slept peacefully beside me. Getting out of bed, I walked to the mirror. A reflection stared back at me with sleepy eyes. It was my bedroom. I was safe. As I started getting ready for the day, I thought about the dream. Who was that woman? And why did she want to reach out to me? I shook my head. It was probably just a dream brought on by stress. After all, we were getting ready to welcome our first child into this old house filled with boxes. I needed rest. But later that day, after my husband left for work, I went back into the room to finish unpacking. The mirror was propped up against the wall, and I couldn't help but stare at the glass. Was the woman from my dream real? Did she live in this house a long time ago? Maybe she died here and was now trapped in the mirror. I quickly dismissed the thought. What kind of crazy things were these? I tried to focus on the task at hand. I had to get this room cleaned out, so my daughter could finally move in. But I kept getting distracted by the mirror. Finally, I decided it was best to get rid of it altogether. I looked around the room to find something heavy enough to smash the mirror, but there was nothing. Then I had an idea. I went downstairs and grabbed my 7-month-old daughter's play mallet. It was made of wood and had a small metal tip. It wasn't much, but it would have to do. I carried the mallet back upstairs and stood in front of the mirror. I knew it was just a dream and that there was no one behind the glass, but I couldn't help but feel a little scared. Taking a deep breath, I swung the mallet at the mirror, hit the glass, and shattered it into a million pieces. As the mirror broke, I saw a flash of movement in the shards. I screamed and dropped the mallet. I could hear the sound of shattering glass and footsteps. Then everything went silent. I stood there frozen, listening intently, but I could hear nothing. I slowly approached the mirror and cautiously put a finger through the shards. They were sharp and cut into my skin, but it didn't hurt. It was like being stabbed by ice. Then I reached in and pulled out a piece of glass. It was smooth and cool to the touch, almost like polished obsidian. I looked at it more closely and realized it wasn't glass at all. It was a piece of metal. I stared at it in confusion. I was holding a piece of tinfoil. Where did that come from? And I looked around the room and noticed something else. All the paint on the walls was peeling away, revealing the original wallpaper underneath. The wallpaper was a beautiful floral pattern and looked as if it had just been done yesterday. Then I saw something else. In the corner of the room, hidden behind a stack of boxes, was a door. It was painted the same color as the walls, so I hadn't noticed it before. Ow. I walked over and opened the door. On the other side was a staircase. I hesitated for a moment, unsure if I should go up or down. Then I remembered the woman in my dream. She seemed nice, and I felt compelled to help her. Plus I was curious. What else did this house hold? So I started walking down the stairs. I had no idea where they would take me, but I knew one thing. Whatever was on the other side of those stairs would change my life forever. To be continued.